So besides the HPC's role in murals, are murals something that should be in downtown?
Oh, that depends on gas.
Didn't you just ask about murals? Didn't you just ask?
Yeah, that really might not be. Legalities right now. I'm very serious.
Hmm.
Asterisk murals.
Yes. There's
Hey,
really
up
I think
until
before
now,
that,
murals were
whatever
considered
Just
vandalism.
Yeah.
what makes it appropriate is,
And who dictates what?
yeah, and who the approval organization.
I also think we get too hung up on murals, not other forms of art. But I mean, there's other mediums that are grossly underrepresented as well.
So you guys have a public art program or
We
anything?
have a committee. It goes through HPC first. and then it goes to public art.
It's not the most active committee. We could have
It meets
some-
when
we
it
could have
needs
some
to.
more public art.
Is the committee just to like review art submissions or is it to make art happen?
Review it.
Yeah, the problem is it does that instead of the first. We needed to, we just. need to make it happen.
Yeah.
And currently no longer has a staff member as of what, last month?
So there are like local organizations that do public art or that advocate it?
Romero Temple for the Arts does.
There you go. Hi.
We raised money for the Ellen Paxton Wilson statue that's downtown. And we were involved in financing the flower one as well. But it's, in the case of the Ellen Wilson statue, it's private money.
That's right across the bridge right there.
Yeah,
Okay.
yes.
Great.
Lovely lady. said-
The lovely lady is waving at you,
Painting.
painting.
Awesome.
Ellie says we'd love to see more focus on incorporating public art. Rome mural collab.
She does very well.
As for murals, since I think I was on the HPC, when we were probably. The problem with downtown is people want to put them on historic buildings. And there was this real issue we thought with not only making them on historic buildings, but with preventing downtown from looking tacky as opposed to Victoria.
This is the biggest Victorian downtown in the state and in the southeastern region, and I have a very good relationship with the Historic Preservation Division, and we would like to keep it that way. Due to the amount of money we get from them, we've got a total of $45 million in grants from them over the last 10 years or so. So that is what has spurred most of our downtown development, is how good our relationship is with them.
Mhm.
We're basically their poster child for the state, out of Macon and Madison.
At first, people had some opinions about the dancing flower downtown. Over time, I think the flower won, but
Flower power.
flower power.
Public art committee.
I gotta go see this flower.
Because raised the question, how did you get there? Why is this thing downtown? Actually, I think it's pretty nice.
Oh, aren't you be surprised?
It always is. We were getting.
How big is the
A
flower?
private business wanted to do, it was on a gateway into the
It's a
city. where I
4-foot
live.
flower?
And they wanted to do a welcome to Franklin mural thing, you know, the classic postcard kind of deal, and each letter would have a different picture in it. And you would not believe the city conversation with the Board of Council, Board of Mayor, and anyway, they were going on, why would you put that picture in that letter? I don't know if there's hot air balloons in that tea or appropriate, or what. I'm like,
That's not typical here.
really?
We just removed a Nathan Bedford Ford statue, and that went through a lot, right, basically. But do keep in mind that Broad Street's pretty set, but we are sitting in the River District. It's what was once going to be the Arts District.
It's not
And now
anymore?
it's- Is it still Arts District, or they just?
No, it should have never been
No.
an arts district.
Yeah, the more Arts District is down closer to that Aventine, South Rome is where it's happening organically, not in these areas.
But murals could be around here.
On this side.
Yeah,
of
on
the
this
river,
side.
yeah, which there are.
Hopefully lots.
Yeah, which seems
On
cool.
this side. of the
So it might not be an arts district, but it could be kind of a grungier feeling with
Yeah,
mural.
depending on what the property owners want.
Could be an artsy district. An artsy district is fine, that
Lot-
kind of the intention
lot
behind
of
the arts
smart-
district was that there were gonna be artists flood the area, and as soon as the first developer comes in and starts charging $2,000 a month rent, all the artists. can't afford to do it.
South Rome is more affordable, and that's why it's become more artsy.
Okay,
And it looks, it's got that feel to it.
It
Okay.
does have a better.
interesting. So when you say this area should never have been an arts district, you're saying already on this side of the river, it's
We
not
should have never
affordable.
Promised artists that they could move over here.
Wow.
affordably.
Okay,
That was just something that was thrown out. there, probably should-
Long ago did they do that one? They started that, was that in Arnold-ish push?
Sure, it went back that far, but I know concrete promises were made. It just seemed a good use of downtown to help.
It's almost like it's like a marketing.
Yeah. it was sort of like,
yeah, yes. Yeah.
When it started, it was out front.
It did.
Yes.
Do students come downtown?
I guess. To some of the
The
bars.
drains. We got an open carry 30 days.
Very trying to keep some close to the heart.
Yeah.
Very students in shorter, if they get caught with anything, that you want to make sure. Put it that way.
If you get caught with anything, what do you want?
Well, they,
If you get caught in downtown?
no, I mean,
Oh.
shorter,
You have to sign a
lifestyle. pledge.
lifestyle pledge.
Shorter's
Shorter's very Christian private.
Interesting.
They fire their teachers.
Do they have
if they get
curfews and
caught by
things?
being in. Yes, they do.
College.
Yeah.
I think so.
So you come downtown to drink?
They, if they don't get caught.
Yeah.
They would likely run into professors.
So no.
I was like,
But,
very-
you know,
more
Christians.
Yeah, then
Yeah.
shorter. I went here in Kennesaw, and I can tell you, we drove all the way to Kennesaw. We wouldn't even dare go downtown.
As a professor at Shorter, I've only ever seen one of my students downtown ever. So
That's just due to the school, not the downtown.
So would it be good to have more students in downtown?
Yes, 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 I'd love for somebody to build a campus like.
Let's emphasize college.
I
students,
had
uh,
a-
yes.
College as opposed to
Yeah.
elementary?
I'm sorry.
College as opposed to
They
elementary?
weren't
like
here
what?
last weekend.
Yeah.
There were a bunch of teenagers. on Broad Street last
Brawling.
Yes, they were like
Ages
raw,
12,
like
13.
week. So
robbing
like
things.
high school, so like college students.
Last time I was here, there was a brawl.
Yeah, at the Melon
The
Mushroom.
Melon Mushroom. It's like, y'all are like, you should just start a
You don't know where it's coming
UFC.
from.
Raw on
yeah,
raw.
Mixed martial
Yeah.
arts thing here.
It's really dumb.
Just some post-COVID angst, maybe? I don't know.
Huh,
Don't even know.
Okay, so college students that don't fight.
The issue here has been that we have very little to no law enforcement in the evenings.
Oh, they were all over it in Melon Mushroom. We had sheriffs and local police
Last
here
night?
and, no, the last time I was here, the last brawl. I thought they did a nice job of breaking it up and making everyone feel safe. All right, so downtown.
It's more of an issue of parents just dropping their kids off unattended.
Yeah, they're just being little brats and hanging out.
Huh. So that means they feel safe dropping them off. That's good.
I mean, I don't think they care.
It seems a little bit, at least a couple of times I've walked around downtown in the night, it seemed a little dark.
It is very dark. I run down at night, it's very dark.
Yeah.
Serious or trails are lit at all.
I noticed that this morning.
We like the lights up brighter though, all the residential is calling our office.
Yeah.
Residential above.
Yeah,
The
there's
shops.
there's a good amount of residential, lots of it.
Is the
Riverwalk downtown lit?
No,
I've never walked on it.
But-
No.
well, on the river where I was walking was not lit.
I mean,
Yeah,
I don't.
there's ways to light things that aren't, don't shine in the, I mean, like, kind of sensible spaces. Hard light casts hard shadows. Pedestrian light to make it more ambient.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily shine in somebody's eyes, but it still provides a safety.
Mhm.
Especially under that bridge. I'm a
Yeah.
little nervous walking under there during the day.
Yes.
I'm a little nervous walking under there.
I always like look and make sure there's no one living under there.
Yeah.
The one that goes under.
Yep.
Yeah.
Found that this
Oh,
morning.
Really?
Well, I decided to go the other way because I didn't want to wake him up.
Please,
The man.
safety.
Yeah, yeah,
there
they-
was someone under
they-
there?
they
Mixing
hang
it
out
together
there,
in
yeah.
front of- Yeah, it's awesome.
That's what we do.
Yeah.
Yes, nothing's off the table here, out of bounds, so,
That.
except for murals.
Technically, the trails are closed after dark. technically.
which is an equity issue because the road's on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
interesting.
And a lot of people use the trails as part of their access,
Commute.
getting to stores and so on and everything.
I mean, and think about in the winter, it gets dark at 5 PM, even just walking back to your car after.
Well,
work or
even your
something.
sunrise this morning was pretty late.
Yeah.
So like if you're trying to get to, because you guys are in West Georgia, so you're close to the line. So it was later than it is for us. When I woke up, I was like, God, what time is it? But I mean, that was a reasonable hour to be trying to get to work or to go to the grocery store.
So the idea of lighting the trails has been brought up.
Yeah.
We'll see. Say your name, Brett.
Well, the other thing is about, if you light up downtown more, people will complain. When there's a, sort of like in the country and in the county, like when the deer show up in your yard, it's just kind of like, oh, I live in the rural area, deer show up in my yard. When you live in the downtown, it's bright and there's noises and there's things. And so it is sometimes hard if it hasn't been well lit and you change it. And so there's growing pains that go on for a little bit, and there's calls that do come in. At some point, people quit calling or they move out, and other people who are into the real downtown life move in. So it's like a self-selecting buyer at that point. So I would say focusing on what we want it to be, what it needs to be its best. And this goes in all regards, not just in that one specific issue, rather than what is most acceptable. And that's some of the things we were just talking about earlier about people complaining about being told what to do or whatever. The old, you got to break a few eggs to make an omelet thing is super true in cities, and change is hard for everyone as you go, but that's why we have commissions and things to keep the things the same that we want to stay the same. But so downtown traffic is good. Doesn't seem to be very trafficy.
We're actively trying to tackle the speed issue. So we're installing some temporary speed tables. They should be installed hopefully next month, just to kind of try to slow some of that down. Crosswalk at Wonder Block, next to the Scala. Yeah, so we're
I
gonna.
feel like it's gotten better. I mean, it was.
Yeah.
Whoa,
Yeah.
you not.
Yeah, it's definitely.
But I feel like it's
yeah.
gotten better.
Yeah, it has a little bit.
Have you all, and this kind of goes to the earlier conversation that we're having about the design of roads and streets and walkable pedestrian oriented areas. When we are looking at things like speed humps, speed tables, all those aftermarket add-ons, if you will, what we generally see is that it's a Band-Aid to fix a road that's not designed properly in the first place. And so is there an opportunity to make those speedy streets designed well? Can you get a road diet going on out
That'd be
there?
great. It's 2 lanes in our downtown. Both ways.
Yeah.
The turn lanes in the middle.
So it's
We
a
did
lot
try
of
sharing
infrastructure.
For bikes when I
You
first
tried
started.
them, you said?
Yeah, we installed them in 2016, 2015, 2016 when I first started. And they haven't been repainted since, and even then, they didn't really take off. Bikers do not want to, some of them do, but most of them kind of steer clear of this area because
You're either gonna come down Shorter Avenue or Turner McCall or East Second to get here, so you're coming down a state highway to get into downtown or to get out
we
of downtown.
asked them to repaint the Sharrows how many times?
And they're like, "Mm, it's on the schedule." And I was like,
Upwards.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Y'all know where they
because
keep the paint?
Yeah, good luck.
Well, the other thing we broached was, can we make the walkway, how they're doing, you're in zigzag and everything, you kind of see that Hawaii if you ever go there. It confuses the mind just enough where it makes you slow down before you get to the crosswalk.
Mhm.
And, no,
Who says no?
Engineering.
engineering.
We tried to do.
It's a
painted
false sense of
crosswalks, and
security.
They reported us to GDOT, our engineering department, that don't want to put it. He's no longer with us, he retired, but now.
Will they be at the Streets and Connectivity meeting?
Oh, God, no.
What?
Can they be?
Yes.
I invited them.
Yeah, they
I
have to
invited
be.
them as well.
When
It's
is that?
imperative.
It's
Monday.
it like.
They'll be here. Come on, y'all. They'll be here. Don't worry. Have faith. It's their meeting.
10
Literally.
10 a.m.
you know?
So we've got
Um,
Sharrows, painted crosswalks, and
But nothing can never, if anything isn't brought up to change, it's all sense of security. We can't do that.
installing temporary crosswalks.
That's with
Also
beacons,
necessary.
crosswalks, really anything.
Need to do something about Second Avenue. It's really dangerous to cross on foot.
Mhm.
Very good.
It's gotten better. The talking lights have helped. I think. Sound
That also doesn't help.
People now are figuring that.
State highway.
People turn right, and just flag it down. you know.
And I think that turn, so you've got, just to, like, you've got Broad, and then you've got a turn call left turn, and you've got a Second Avenue turn, and then it gets into these corridors that are like main drags of commercial spaces, and Second Avenue has, I think it's more on the grid than, like, if we can call anything in Rome a grid, but it's still, and then turn call is just free, open interstate, if you will. So you've got this sense of transition of turning onto two main thoroughfares that is crazy for walking or biking or anything other than an automobile.
For a downtown district, it's still very auto-centric, I think. You know, since we work off Broad, we walk down the street all the time for lunch and so on and everything. And what I have started doing is if I'm at Fifth and Broad, it's like go to Raphael all the time, walk down the street. What I'll do, because when someone is coming off North Fifth Avenue from this area and they're turning right to go south on Broad Street, they'll slow down because they got to slow down, but they don't see them come, they will just go, but often, but even when the pedestrian has the walk signal, you know, these cars are barely around the corner. And so what I do now is I will stand at the corner, which I don't like to do, but I'll stand at the edge of the curb so people will hopefully see that, hey, there's a person here because the building is so close to the road that if you're back a little bit and then start walking, you know, it could be a curious situation. And it was about 2 years ago when Brittany and Kayla were going somewhere.
Oh, I almost got hit coming from Swift.
Was it just two of y'all?
Yes, it was me. I swirled.
Or you?
I almost got hit and we had to look up the car that almost hit me on the cameras on top of City Hall. And I had the light. It's ironic, the planner getting hit with the transportation planner by a
Well,
car. in the
she
crosswalk.
she just froze. She didn't run. So
But they
survival.
clearly didn't respect. Yeah.
So Art, kind of what you're saying is like no right turn on red. That would help.
You know, it would, but then the question then becomes, and this is something that, you know, which has come up in some of our transportation meetings, you know, when I brought it up, I said, well, I'll say the only solution, but what was mentioned was that, you know, to stop all the vehicular traffic, you know, for that and everything, and basically do a scramble. There's one at Tech, you know, I think at Fifth and Tech, well, not in Midtown by Georgia Tech, there's one that, you know, when the scramble starts, the vehicular traffic stops. And then so you have, you know, some massive people going right there, going everything. I don't know if there's an appetite for that, but I think if we're talking about downtown and, you know, you got a lot of people, you know, residents, visitors, and everybody else walking, we don't need to have something that could be a precarious situation without at least trying to address it. And I don't know if putting some signage up that says, you know, beware of pedestrians or watch for pedestrians. Watch for maybe that too. You know, watch for pedestrians or something so that people can see that, because I understand if you're going wherever and everything, you're new to town, you're just kind of going through, you're not familiar. I mean, we've all been places where it's not sure, you know, blah, blah, you're trying to, you know, do what you can to be safe and everything. But I just, you know, we experience that, you know, 5-6 days a week easily. And that's just something that I don't know the best way to address that, but I did want to mention.
Well,
The no right turn on red might be a good, I mean, it's hard to see right there anyhow. But I was turning the other day and I was looking and I saw Carlos and I was like, okay, I started to go, then I was like, Carlos, and then he jumped, and I was like, I'm not going, you go, Carlos. Yeah. So,
Well, in most downtowns that I go to, when you get into the downtown, the character of it and the design of it makes you just kind of go slow, and you're kind of like looking around, oh, this is cool, and but you're going at such a speed that even if like I remember right when I moved to Franklin, it's on my first week there, I'm driving down Main Street, and I saw these group of kids were about to go into a shop, and they stopped and they were looking back, and I was like, what are they looking at? And then so I turned and slammed on my brakes, and there was a pedestrian right in front of me, and it was Alan Jackson, the country singer. I about ran him and his wife over, but I was going so slow that even though he was just a few feet ahead of me, I was able to stop. And so, that's part of this issue in a pedestrian environment. If you have a road that's designed to move cars at a pretty good rate of speed, we've got a problem. And so maybe if the road and the speed and the size and all of that stuff is the most important thing for some of the departments and the DOT, maybe we should just go ahead and let the character on either side of the road start to reflect that and look more like a suburban strip corridor, right? We can get rid of some of these pesky historic buildings and do all that, put some parking lots in front and all, and we'll just keep that traffic going, right? Or maybe the context is important, and you have a different context, a different design based on the context that it's in. And right now, national best practices around the country for engineering, including the AASHTO Green Book and all that stuff, is context sensitive thoroughfare design. And so these are the kind of things that need to be incorporated into what's going on here. Because if it's not safe, that's not good either. So,
I was just gonna ask, is it clear visually that you're entering downtown in your, like, what are the parameters of your downtown? Is it clear when you enter that it is downtown?
It would be very
Not
easy
clear
to
on
bypass it, not notice.
Yeah.
Like,
We have been working on signage. That's something that's in the process of the design.
Yeah,
DDA design committees, we've been working on signage for a couple of years.
Yeah, but no, it's not. It's,
It could help.
you kind of wade into it more than anything. Instead of having a significant demarcation point, or there's been any signage to where that demarcation point is. It's just kind of like,
yeah,
oh, look, now all of a sudden. hey.
yeah. And some of it's signage, some of it's the street character, how wide it is, the street trees. Yeah,
So they can
Parking.
easily, so
That's
it's
wide.
24 feet on each side. This could easily go down to 10.
yeah.
Is what,
10, yeah, 10's about the,
because the interstate lane is what, like 14?
yeah, I
Something like
texted
that?
him because he just did a street thing. Each line's 12 feet, and that's not
12 feet.
Angled parking, 12 feet, 12 feet median, 12 feet, 12 feet angled parking.
Wow.
One of the issues with Fifth Avenue, also, I shouldn't say issues, one of the things with Fifth Avenue is that it's a river crossing. And so, I mean, it's, I think to try to, do anything, because we had this conversation in the past few months and everything, anything that could be seen as, affecting the traffic flow right there, is. But I mean, I think we gotta find a way to balance it, or there's gotta be something, because
What you see though,
until then, I'm standing at the edge of the curve. That's the only thing I can do.
what you see though in a lot of great cities though, is it's actually really inconvenient to drive, and finally you're just like, oh, forget this, I'm just gonna get out on foot and hoof it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we had to-
Spectrum, you just make it pedestrian only, cut it down to one lane for emergency vehicles only.
That was Bob Henderson brought up a similar idea. He said many cities have found a way to take vehicular traffic off their main street. Can we use our imagination to do the same to Broad?
Pedestrian plaza.
One of the things I like about.
Well,
Woodstock
it's
is there's so
tough
much
with
traffic, it
retail.
has to go slow.
Yeah.
It's always a traffic
You
jam.
have
So
to
can
have
walk in
the
cars.
cities that have done that successfully.
There's like 4.
Yeah. And Burlington, Vermont is one of them, Church Street, and they were originally pedestrian and they had enough population and enough kind of critical mass to where they could go.
And they had like 6 colleges and universities, so
Yeah.
the college students who are already on foot anyway.
And they're committed to
That's the
being
only
green.
connection for emergency vehicles also down Broad. It still
Yeah.
is right to South. Broad.
Yeah, so many.
But you can not to turn it to be a naysayer, because I think that there's a lot of those elements that are really good. It's just, can those retail business owners survive that. And you don't want to kill the life that is generating all the activity. So what if you made it just on certain days and it was easier to get those variances where you do shut down the street and you kind of have a festival street that can transition and transform on special days, to kind of create that fun plaza feeling. But
Wendy's in the back, she can answer that suggestion.
I didn't hear everything that you said about her shutting down the street.
well, it was being thrown around to
You
shut,
panicked, you
to go full pedestrian. And I
Well-
was saying maybe some things that we've seen work better than going full pedestrian on one of your main streets would be to have the option
They
now.
had the concert brass Irish jig shut down the street last year.
Yeah.
And I think it was right out of like the mask mandate or whatnot. And I would love to know the population count on that. Because and I can't remember what section of Broad was shut down. But maybe we try it, pilot it kind of thing, just like the other stuff we pilot, because we talked about the open, container scenario. And my only hesitation is like, there's not enough college students coming downtown to populate that shut down street.
Mhm.
But to create, activity for the shops, but it seems like there's sections of the street that are prime for that kind of thing, where the bar is maybe, I don't know. And then you turn off of where it's shut down in front of the bar. I don't know, but you
Yeah.
can start small and then maybe eventually Broad
Yeah.
does become.
I don't know
like
if
an
any of
open
you are
mall.
familiar
I don't
with,
know. That sounds crazy, but.
So.
if any of you
yeah.
are familiar with Denver,
Yes.
Larimer Square.
Yeah.
So quite historic. It's wonderful. I used to live and work there for the last 5 years, and they are really thinking over, should we make it pedestrian?
Yeah.
And they're even concerned with the amount of traffic that they get, that it would really shut down the retail. So they're doing small pilot things to see. And it's not even that they're kind of thinking we want to move that way, we'll do a small pilot just to see how it goes. For you guys, it could be sometimes we do it, sometimes we don't, and we don't have to move fully in that
Or that
direction.
retail space, like going back to those Turner McCall and corridor, Second Avenue corridors of creating, okay, so if Broad were more pedestrian friendly and those main thoroughfares on the skirts of Broad maybe there's an incentive, with on-street parking or whatnot for Second Ave and Turner McCall to be more street friendly and get out of your vehicle and start to walk like Broad.
Mhm.
If Broad shut down a pedestrian corridor and then move your cute boutique shops to those main thoroughfares
Yeah.
that we're trying to renovate and give a new look to anyways, to encompass them into. all of
Or
them.
your 2-lane streets that you have running through downtown, just do the tactical urbanism route and keep your 1 lane on either way and then turn those parking or the lane or the parking spots into more cafe space like we saw during COVID. I mean, those are things where you don't have to change any infrastructure, really. You get some large planter boxes and
We did parking day, what, last year? Parking day?
Oh, that's right.
And it turned out pretty, I mean, the staff turned out pretty good.
yeah, I've been in some of those that work really well, and then sometimes you don't provide enough shade, or it just feels like really awkward and you're just kind of sitting there. But if you have someone waiting on you and you have a table and you have an umbrella and there's lots of people and mostly shade and some enclosure, it feels okay.
I mean, and that's on par for COVID, alternatives.
Yeah.
And we're definitely not going into another shutdown, but
Yeah.
outside in more aerated spaces.
The crazy thing is that something like COVID really did take down the barriers of some things like open container and being able to take over the street. And now people are like, I like that. And it's so awesome for people like us, because we're like, I know you do. Like, thank you for joining us. Yeah.
I think the long and the short of it is that something needs to be done with the design of the road as the heart of your downtown. Now, I mean, in the 70s, it was super popular to try to shut down, make it pedestrian only. And like I said, only like 4 or 5 of them actually survived, didn't kill their main streets. Burlington, the one in Boulder, Pearl Street.
They struggle
There's
still
There's
though.
a few, but I think that and rather than going, full out, if you design the road so that it is pedestrian prioritized rather than car prioritized, and that's something that you can do every day, all day. It's happened, it's like that every day, all day long. I think that goes a long way, but I mean, at the end of the day, if not everybody's on the same page, then you're at an impasse. I mean, your comp plan says do X, Y, and Z. It doesn't say specifically you need to do road diet and all that stuff, but it talks about pedestrian and emphasizing downtown and all that. It sounds like the departments need to all kind of get together, and their bosses all need to get together and say, here's what is going to happen. And this is normal. We see this in all cities, but you can't have different departments moving forward the same vision in different directions. This doesn't work. Try that in any business and see what happens.
So will that be a part of your summary statement?
Yeah, I'm happy to say that. I mean, it doesn't show up in the zoning, unfortunately. This is like a complete editorial side note comment.
But
But
having those departments here during this process is quite critical.
yeah, to not have all the departments participate in the zoning rewrite, it would be not good.
Another thought, instead of shutting down all of Broad Street, is just doing the most popular block that we think could withstand just going pedestrian, like the Cotton Block, because that's busy every day, every night. And maybe it could survive that.
Second longest busy or
200 block.
200. 200 block, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Turn it into an entertainment food place only, the retail places that would eventually migrate out of there. Would probably have to turn to entertainment food block, which it kind of is now.
What is downtown? Where is downtown? What are the boundaries of downtown?
It goes from South Broad Bridge to the 600 block. How far does it go? The 600 block, which is where the Chamber of Commerce is, and then it goes back one block each. East first, west first.
My iPad died, so I'm on my phone now. So I'm looking here at the aerial, and we've been talking a lot about the commercial core, but one street over, completely different character. And I would wager to say they're still in downtown, right? Y'all are talking about residential areas as well in downtown.
Like from the river to Glen Minor Boulevard.
Milner, no.
Milner,
it's
yep.
Not really downtown.
Okay,
No.
so to 3rd Street,
It
second.
used to be considered, I think, part of downtown. but that wouldn't
Not
change that
anymore.
Basically, Tribune, Broad, and First.
Yeah. 600 to 100.
All right, so then.
Tribune,
let
Broad,
me
and First.
clarify. So you said it used to be considered, but it's not now. Are we
First,
talking about it like an
Broad,
actual
Trib-
An actual
line on the
district,
map?
Yeah, yeah. Our business improvement district at one point incorporated from our.
Got it. Okay, so I really mean like,
What do we think?
what is down, yeah, like where's the?
Yeah, they
mental
won't
map?
consider Glen Milner downtown. That's people,
Yeah.
there's downtown and then there's between the rivers. Either downtown or you're in between the rivers, and Glen Milner would be in between the rivers.
Hence the push to push across the river and come over here.
Yeah, because
So
you're quite
like-
constrained.
The intersection of East First and East Fifth.
So what about the
That-
open container area? That would be what I would consider downtown.
Yeah, that'd be the.
The water tower or whatever the clock tower
Clock
is.
tower would be between the rivers. That's not downtown.
Okay, interesting.
That's not under on the, no.
I don't mean in an official boundary. I mean in a,
I would say it stops at the clock tower.
Yeah, it depends on who you talk to.
because like in most cities and in Franklin too, like we have Main Street, but then we have 16 blocks that is downtown. And those 16 blocks besides Main Street are mostly residential. And it's like the grid, the historic grid.
Like you said, though, if you go 2 blocks in that direction, you're in an basically an entirely residential area at that
Mhm.
point. So
Downtown is really just Broad Street.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
from.
And they
what
live
Tom said, it's from a
in-
coffee
next to
shop
Clock
to
Tower.
Moore. So the bench coffee shop to the river. Like that's,
Yeah, so you got
that's really what people. it's just
downtown and then the neighborhoods around downtown. is maybe the
There's
way.
the
to-
neighborhood on that side and then there's this on the other side.
Interesting. Okay.
Be great if it's more cohesive. It's just for whatever reason, never has been.
What makes it not feel like downtown?
Aesthetics.
But they're historic neighborhoods,
Oh,
right?
yeah, but from my point of view, it's like the aesthetics of the infrastructure. Like Broad Street has nice sidewalks, nice lighting, it's well kept, landscaping and everything, and you literally go 12 feet past Broad Street, you start walking up towards the clock tower, and you could very easily trip on one of the sidewalks because they're all broken.
Also, reduce width by like half.
It's just, you know, the infrastructure for Broad Street back is just crap.
Got it.
And also, like, the topography changes, you start to go uphill, and just to get people to walk from one block to another is a lot. And I'm being honest, like, and expecting people to walk uphill to go somewhere,
Yeah.
it's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
So that's why I
Don't
kind
break
of
a
just
sweat
like,
down
that's
to
why,
their
like, if
houses.
downtown's gonna extend, it's gonna have to
It
extend
has
this
to
way.
come this way, right?
Down
Which
the
makes
hill.
sense because the stadium's right there. So there's like a gathering of folks that could be inclusive if that whole, this whole area was very walkable.
I
rather
did
than-
just apply for a grant, hopefully for streetscape on this side of the river. So I can't say that that's gonna happen because we don't know, but I did apply for it, so.
Hmm.
That would
I'm glad I
help.
asked that question because I was taking for granted that it was like all of this
Between the
kind of
rivers.
core
Yeah.
in the, yeah.
But like I said, they do live up in it, but when you get some of those the residences up there, they will tell you that it's separate. And it's separate.
Well, I mean, aesthetically and character. that
They don't
we've been
wanna be
talking about
part
it,
of
it just,
downtown.
it doesn't flow, like, it's just not there.
It's an uphill battle.
Literally. And some of those people have lived in those houses, their generational homes too.
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
It's not a fight.
It's interesting. that
There's
you
also
go
just not
first,
a
you know,
lot
one side
on,
of the
like,
street, you
First
do see some
Street,
houses,
Center,
mostly
but what are you
churches,
gonna
but over here is backside Broad Street, you have to.
And I would have to say that this is, I mean, I would love to see more multifamilies, I mean, density over here. I guess that, you know, I mean, it would be cool to just walk to the stadium if I had kids that, you know, playing football or whatever, you know, on this side. Affordability.
But if we get the density right over here, then that becomes even more critical over there to make it pedestrian friendly,
Exactly.
because this will feed that.
and vice versa.
Mhm.
Interesting.
It's been
Um,
20 years, but I used to walk from, my house was on the corner of Fifth and Glen Milner. And I'd walk to, it's gonna take me, Waffle House.
Oh, yeah.
There was a Waffle House?
Where?
Yeah, we're sweet.
What-
Sweet Bar.
Sweet Bar was
right.
Waffle House.
No.
So I would
way.
walk from my house to Waffle House and back. And that was usually after I'd been in El Zarape, they went home and then I
Right,
got Waffle House.
exactly. That's-
Let's go to Waffle House.
I'm glad you
So-
walked. Getting people to walk down here is.
If East First Street is kind of one boundary,
You're right.
then you've got Broad. And then you've got Tribune, is that,
Yeah.
okay? But then you've got all the government buildings and then the river.
Mhm.
All the
And
government
then-
buildings, whole nother conversation.
Why not many buildings on the river?
Because the government built all their buildings on the river.
Okay,
So back in my understanding, and y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, but in the 70s and the 80s, Broad Street was really bad. We redid streetscape in 86, which was brilliant looking back. But for the longest time, there were a lot of really trashy buildings on the river.
Mhm.
And so the thinking at the time was, well, it's better to have nothing there than to have a trashy building. So the government took the incentive or initiative to buy all those buildings and tear them down. And then something called a SPLOST was passed in Georgia that we could do that. And the first thing that we want to do is build lots of government buildings. Well, where do we have the land? Well, it's
Right.
right on the river. So do we keep the land vacant or do we actually do something with it? And it was.
The red is your downtown.
So
the
tell me,
peach is the
be
downtown
specific
station.
about that, because
Mhm.
looking at the map, and I was discussing
Yeah.
that with Emily earlier,
We are
it
over
says
here.
conservation
Yes, this is
along the
all
river.
downtown.
Does that mean that there's
Yeah,
a
I just pulled up
conservation
here.
easement between the river and those government
Yes,
buildings?
that's it.
So it is
The purple
buildable.
Oh, yeah.
And the pink and red.
Okay.
Well, the good news is that all those
Green's
government buildings
more-
are downtown
But it's just
instead of out
such-
in the suburbs.
even
True.
And that is
this-
good, even though it's on, because it brings a lot of people downtown.
Yeah, they're
Seen
shipping
that over.
2 blocks back. instead of-
Right, it's an unfortunate location.
Money in this area.
Right, you're not gonna win that
But
battle.
if you had the
Sure they
opportunity
are. So you gotta
to
go
take
this
back
way.
that land and do new development, but it meant you had to move all the municipal buildings out of downtown, you really have to weigh the cost benefit of that?
That'd be simple.
What do you
Okay,
mean?
so the amount of tax dollars we could get for that.
Oh, no, I don't mean
Yeah.
literally the cost. I mean the cost to, like, I remember one of my old professors telling me the story. He was working, there was this town in Ohio and their downtown had died and they're like, what happened? So he was looking at it and it turns out that a few years prior, they had moved the post office out of downtown and all the PO boxes and all that stuff. So they lost tons of trips. So people were taking on a daily basis coming down to that one post office moving, killed their downtown. And so he said, you need to put the post office back, and it really helped. And so when you see these buildings that are not specimens of design or activity and excitement and all of that, they do have a lot of people coming and going to them that, no?
The form is.
For the amount of space they take up, probably not so much.
What's it like? So we have like the courts, is that right?
That parking deck.
What
is vacant
else?
right now. And that would be awesome as apartments.
Yeah,
Wouldn't
for
that be
sure.
cool? But that's government
So,
parking.
so the forum, so just like a 10,000 foot view of the forum.
Yeah.
It was designed to be everything for everyone at 2/3 of the budget that it would have actually taken it to make it everything for everyone. So what it winds up being is nothing good for anyone, which
So,
means it's empty all the time because it's a crappy building and a crappy design, not necessarily the architect's fault, but they just didn't have the money to do it properly. So they just did it anyways because it's passed on the SLOSS. Long story short, it was not utilized in the way it should have been. So now after COVID, it's utilized as a court system, which just they're trying to catch up on court cases,
yeah,
which means that the city of Rome can't use it for anything. So we can't get any tourism dollars out of it. So it's basically an oversized courthouse to catch up our COVID cases. In addition to that, the judicial building that's right next to it doesn't really function the way it's supposed to either. And the reason that it was placed there is you had a historic courthouse next to it, and it was supposed to supplement that with offices for all the other government entities that were located in the old historic courthouse. That didn't really work out either, because now it's either overgrown or outgrown its size and its purpose, and it's difficult to get down there, and the county hates it because there's nowhere to park. And the city's trying to shrink the street to make it more pedestrian friendly, and that's just a whole nother argument in and of itself. And so we have two conflicting points of view about what should be down there. And it's all encompassed in the police station, because the police station makes sense that it should be next to the judicial center.
yeah.
The judicial center made sense that it should be next to the existing judicial center. And the forum was supposed to bring all kinds of good stuff down here, which means that we needed that parking deck. Well, the problem is the forum never brought anything, which means the parking deck is useless. The judicial center that was built was not really functioning properly because the courthouse next to it never functioned properly. And the police station just looks like a big chicken with a green roof on it. And it has another parking deck next to it that gets used for auto maintenance. So all of those things can be taken and put somewhere,
Interesting.
anywhere else,
That's
essentially.
actually the only deck that is, I would say, at maybe like 80% capacity during the week. And it's because all of our government employees park there, which is, I mean, great. All those people are coming downtown and eating throughout the day or whatever.
It's not just the criminals.
But.
They come in a bus in a van.
I
right?
would say
They repaper.
this side of the river at that time might have been a better use for
Yeah.
this space over here. Because people that are in these buildings do use the downtown. But at the time it happened, Broad Street closed up at 6
Yeah, that's
o'clock.
true.
It
That's
was dark and didn't come alive till the next morning.
Yeah.
And all the buildings that were taken down were derelict. They weren't safe to go in, except for the bus station was in okay shape. But you didn't want to be in there after dark either, but at any rate, there was quite a few, and the landfill was where the tennis center was. Yeah, and the city pool and all that was built on an old landfill. So, at the time it was done, I want to be careful not to throw our forefathers under the bus because it makes sense to do. But now that really doesn't work. So how do you get to something that is not the highest and best use for a piece of property without throwing away, because it takes a certain amount of time to get a return on investment on the government buildings that were there. But how do we make way for that to happen in the future, which I would kind of like to see maybe keep this over here. We do need some mixed use development over here as well. And we have talked a lot about mixed use development per se in single buildings, but There's been some proposals to bring that, but I'd like to see some of this be saved for when we figure out what is the highest and best use for government agencies and relocate that would make on this side of the river so we can make use of all of that. It should be something that is adds to as we grow in population and need, because it's hard to cross the river.
Yeah.
Pedestrian wise, not me, I do it every day just because I live over there, but it is hard for people who are not used to walking.
Yeah.
To think about walking 6 or 7 blocks,
Yeah.
you know, to go to a different restaurant than they usually go to, you know, so.
And it's not bad to have a government building on the river. It's just bad to have all of them there because it is it's a barrier a little
It
bit,
is.
especially for the activity on the river. So if you did move those buildings to this side of the river, it would have to be in a different, it couldn't just be over here.
You think like the
Like
one,
this.
the library, there's not really a bad spot, because I mean, it's kind of off by itself, I mean, it's off Broad Street, but it's still river adjacent, still convenient.
I'm a little
Somehow get every
concerned.
government office in the library. I think we're good.
It seems like the building that's the worst issue is perhaps the forum, because of all the problems already mentioned with this construction. That's not at all what was intended, and it got tied up with city and county, and other things. And one of the county commissioners was out floating ducks in the parking lot, claiming it would never work and it should be out on the bypass and all sorts of things. But anyway, I digress. But to put it there was something that the city people really wanted, because it would bring people downtown. It's just that it wasn't constructed as planned because of the money issues and the invite.
Problem too is every other city built one too, so it wasn't able to attract as much as they intended.
Right, but we were gonna have all these great conventions
Yeah.
and have downtown traffic and woo-hoo, but
Right.
so the forum needs something.
It is critical that that piece works, right? It's
Yeah,
on the
it's in the
bridge,
middle
it's on the
too.
green, it's the connective piece from Broad.
They wanted to build it out towards Shannon.
Yeah.
Way out of town. It wasn't close to town. And where we're sitting now was a city police station with the jail. And across the river was the county jail. So when I used to jog up and down the levee, you know, there would be cat calls from the jail. And so now the county facility's been moved to a more appropriate place in the North Broad. And it's a huge jail. Now the city just contracts with the county.
So one question I have is, this building that we're in here looks relatively new, right? And while it is kind of, seems to be oriented a bit towards the river.
It looks like a Panama City hotel.
Go ahead and step on it.
Yeah, I'm curious. It doesn't relate to the street behind it at all.
And that's it, like I was saying, it looks like a Panama City hotel, because you've got the parking here, because you want the ocean view. So,
Well, and until you get to the end of the bridge of the catwalk there, you don't see the river even.
Very little actually interacts with the river on either side. of the river.
Yeah.
It's a huge.
And it looks like your parcels are set up that way to where it's pretty far back, right?
And that's, I mean, and Mark, you can better explain this, but I think this is Usunuma and Nakusa, and the idea of water is an automatic attraction, and we have yet as a city to take advantage of that. And I think that has to be on the main priority. I don't care what it is, like paddling and that idea of not bushes at the edge of the river, but rather something to walk down into. You can talk safety all day, but there's ways of.
Where can you
to work
touch the
through it.
water?
You can't, that's the problem.
You
and You can't
cannot.
interact with
Is
something.
it
You have
dirty?
to-
And the boat ramp.
Is it unsafe or dirty?
No,
No.
no. So I've been floating the idea of a river walk for a couple of years now.
I mean, it's like every other city in the universe has done one. It's not like it's like a big risk.
Right.
They always
Right.
were.
They
It's a
always-
Corps of Engineers, there's a buffer zone that we're not allowed to encroach on.
We can, we just gotta go through all the mayis,
Yeah.
and the mayis scare everybody, but it's just time and money.
And the fact that this bridge out here from this place, that almost killed the deal because the Corps, it took so long for the Corps of Engineers to grant the permission to connect their walk catwalk out to the levee.
You know what, Columbus, Georgia sued the Corps, and within 19 months, they were able to do it, demolish 2 dams and stick a whole bunch of stuff in the river that made it a whitewater rafting.
Mhm.
You know, we can do the same thing.
Yeah.
Mm.
Whether or not we have the political will to do that
Yeah.
is yet to be seen, but we
I've
can
been
do
to it.
that.
To
Well, at a
Columbus, it's
minimum,
nice.
like, you know, for the best view of the river to be at the end of the ramp over here across from the patio. My question was, is there a limit on how wide that could be? Couldn't you just make it as wide as the patio and now all of a sudden it actually, you have a river view and you go right there? It's
Sure.
like so I was thinking about a new frontage type that we could create called a levee frontage type. And so those buildings that are along the water here address it in the following way. And each new building then creates your at least upper river walk
Right.
as they go in. There's some things we could do to make that happen. We'll have to learn more about the specifics of what you can and can't do around the levee. But I'm also wondering, it seemed like if the building were touching the levee, that it would actually make the levee stronger. Am I missing something?
Maintenance, levee maintenance.
And the Corps of Engineers won't even let people in my historic districts down in Avenue A put a fence on the levee, like right up against the property line to the levee.
We need to see.
They'll come out and tear them up.
I couldn't even drive a
Just-
Bobcat on the levee to pick up a fallen tree, to reclaim the fallen tree. They wouldn't even let me drive it.
They come out quite regularly too, with these levees, the Corps does.
But the city was great. They managed it and we saved. the
So
tree.
once Columbus sued them,
But,
they haven't changed anything?
Maybe for Columbus.
And I know that there is down 27 and outside in the rural community. The Lock-in Dam and all of that water, the connectivity of the city to the rest of the county is imperative because the fishermen are adamant, and I completely agree with them, that the waterways will bring a very large revenue source,
Mhm.
whether it's through fishing or kayaking or rowing, or any of those type of water activities, but we don't have the infrastructure and the capabilities to access the water to make that revenue stream come alive for us.
Can you guys just organize some events? Like we're gonna, hey, you know, this is gonna be our monthly tubing day or whatever. You get out, like just start doing stuff in spite of the fact that you're not designed to do stuff.
The infrastructure is so bad, it's kind of dangerous when those events do
Yeah.
get organized.
The water's not the cleanest to get in.
How's it dangerous?
There's nowhere to get out.
Right, there's no emergency on Coosa.
We had an event called the Great Float here. There was an attempt to break the Guinness Book of World Records, which almost ended in a massive loss of life because for some reason we did it on a day that the river was up
We
6
had a
feet.
tremendous amount of
This
rain.
was recent, wasn't that
And
last
flowing
year?
6
No,
times
it
the
was
regular time.
5 years.
So the other part of this equation,
Turned into a rescue
So the
operation.
the other part of this equation is the Goose Canal is controlled by Carter's Dam. Etowah is controlled by Lake Alatoona Dam. Both of those are Georgia Power and their core, which means they get to release the water whenever the hell they want to, at whatever rate they want to produce the energy that they need.
Mhm.
And damn everybody, literally, downstream. And so our water level can be 2 feet high, and then 6 hours later, it'll be 6 feet high. And so it's just all day long, all month long,
Yeah.
and it's to get.
So you don't know where to put the river walk? At what elevation?
Well, yeah,
Exactly.
so there's a way around that.
Floats?
Yeah, well, kind of, but I mean, Chicago had a pretty clever way around that. I think we could do something like that.
Mhm.
There's ways to do it, but the Corps has to not be a jackass.
Well, first you'll have to decide to do it,
Mhm.
whatever it is,
Yeah.
right? You'll have to decide to do it and then figure out how to battle the battles and what the specifics are.
To your point, there's a lot more activity on the other river, the Etowah,
Yeah.
for multiple reasons. One, it flows a little faster, so if you come tubing down this, let's say you put in Calhoun, you're gonna be out there for 2 days. I mean, and there's nowhere to camp in between.
Well, all right, how about a kayak day or something?
Yeah.
So you have some,
Once again, you can do it, but you're gonna paddle the whole way. Like
Yeah.
there is
Yeah.
There
no
are
going.
sections that are doable, we could. You're certainly right, that's a good idea. But to make it a public event where it's organized by the city is kind of risky. Any kind of
no, I just
water-
meant local, like a local group of people who are water enthusiasts.
Well, there's a lot of that going on. There's
Is
a
that
lot
a
of that
Blue Way
going on.
group?
Yeah.
Yeah, you might see 300 or 400 kayaks getting out over the course of a Saturday, some Saturdays. I'm telling you, it's a
Wow.
stream.
There's a tubing outfitter that uses the other river.
Mhm.
I mean, I had to wait an hour when they took my boat out of the water, the boat ramp over here in the park.
There's a
Okay.
desire to do it.
Mhm.
We like the infrastructure to make it viable.
Yeah.
That's
Mhm.
right.
So can y'all start doing like photo? I'll get all 300 or 400 at the same time in a small area and take a picture off the bridge of them all in there.
It's amazing.
I actually have some great pictures of what he's talking about before it went, south, and when everybody was still smiling.
Yeah.
Well, it was all good until it was time to get out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
All right.
I have something to say.
Yes,
Okay,
please.
So I lived in Chattanooga before, so all of my frame of reference
Yeah.
is Chattanooga. So sorry that's all my examples. But one of the problems we have here is that stuff right outside the rivers and the floodplains. So it's sketchy to build, but Chattanooga is built all along the river and they
Mhm.
flood just as bad as
Mhm.
Rome. I mean, there were several days where I couldn't go into school because it was flooded. But they still have the river walk. They have parks along the river. They have UMU along the river.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to throw it out there as a good example
Yeah.
of what we
Right.
could do.
Right.
They have the dam run by TVA right above Chattanooga. And
Yeah.
they, they post their release schedules and everything, so people know when to utilize the river. And the Tennessee River is also gross, but people still get in it. So
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If you
don't.
ask anybody where Chattanooga started, its kind of escalation into an amazing city.
Mhm.
It started at the river and worked its way from there.
Definitely. even though it was disgusting.
Right.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
And-
so don't let all these sort of realities or the logistics or being practical or the current condition dissuade you from some grand ideas and vision, for sure. I mean, obviously the zoning can only do so much, but we can do things like the frontage thing that I was talking about. That'd be kind of interesting.
Yeah.
All right, how are we doing on time?
It's 5.
I tell you, a really beautiful spot, Confluence, which is kind of a unique feature. Not a lot of communities have a confluence. like
Yeah.
we do.
Yeah.
Downtown.
Someday it'll be. man.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that Brian has said and hearing this, my frame of reference is Denver, and it's obviously bigger, but it maybe will help to know that they have very similar struggles with their river. And even some of the largest developers from around the country are coming in, saying, we're having these issues too. And so when you start pulling those precedents like Chattanooga, like Denver, everyone's struggling with it because I think everyone's just now realizing, their waterfronts are asset. The waterfronts are friend. It was low-lying area, so it's where industrial was. That's no longer the case in most places. And people, millennials, and the market is driving towards the river. So most places are grappling with this. It's not easy, but it's definitely being done. So where I think we used to kind of run into, well, we can't because of this, definitely encourage you guys to push on it, because you don't need to have you don't have to have everything built on the river fronting it. It'd be really cool if you did, but for instance, along the Platte River in Denver, which is a measly river compared to what you guys have. They talk about on the river, everything. I was working on the river mile. If you look it up, it's 4 million square feet that's planned for the river right now in the flood zone. They're working with the Corps of Engineers to figure out the river, and they're now partners, and not partners in that way, but they're working together. And really all that's on the river right now is one anchor, and it's what brings everyone down there. It's an REI with a Starbucks in it. That's great. But even an anchor today, when I went to go run, I was like, oh, there's a Starbucks right down there. I'll run. It's 1.4 miles from here. I'll go there. And I looked on the map. Can't get there from here. So just like one anchor, one instance that kind of gives someone the excuse to go feel like they belong on the river is a really good starting point. Even your 5K that you had this morning, once I realized I shouldn't go that way, I went this way. And I think I went to the boat ramp. Yeah. I mean, that made me feel like I had an excuse to hang out because it was activated. So I just would want to encourage you guys that although you're very realistic and correct on all the barriers that are in front of you, most cities have had to grapple with it, and it is doable.
It does make a huge difference when you go across any of these bridges and you look down and there's like a red, blue, yellow, purple
Mhm.
kayak float,
Yeah.
whatever. I mean, it adds a great deal of vibrancy to
Yeah.
the city.
And you've got
Mhm.
this bridge, which is,
Oh, that's great.
so this was the bridge that you guys were telling us about in the initial interviews, that originally it was the bridge to nowhere.
Yeah, because there's nothing over
Right.
here.
That's really cool. If you guys did that, like congratulations. It's really pretty awesome.
It only took 10 years.
It's great. I mean, when was it built? It looks like it's been here forever. So also,
It's relatively new, but I don't.
in a good way, it's patinaed well. Like I
Right.
think that it fits in place nicely.
Yeah. So, and that probably seemed impossible at the time, and there's probably not easy to accomplish, right?
Reverse a lot of pushback.
Right.
Mhm.
There's no problem with difficult, right? I mean, we can do difficult all day long. We just have to throw money and time and political will behind it.
Mhm. Mhm.
I mean, that's. Just gotta get it started.
Claire, Chair with TPDC as well. So I lived in Colorado for a little bit of work there as well. So I've seen both sides where they actually sped up the river to put whitewater in, which, it's great for a very small population, hard population. Then you have a saying it's moving too fast. I saw the exact opposite in Aspen where they actually slowed down the river so that more people could access it. So, I mean, this isn't necessarily because it is slow, it's not necessarily a bad thing. I think it's a little more user friendly.
Yeah.
A larger percent of the population that have access to it and use.
Mhm.
You answered a few questions between 2 and 6 feet. So the CFS is pretty slow. It looks like there's a lot of sediment. Is that just because of the rains and that, or is
There's
that
a lot of
kind
farmland.
kind of common?
It always looks
Right.
like that.
And the water quality is, I think is that fairly good?
It's not that great.
It's
They
not
only,
great, but it's much better than it has been.
Yeah, that doesn't stop Southerners. I will pretty much float in anything. I won't drink it.
Most of the sediment is picked up from the core, just releasing water.
Opening, closing.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
CFS changes.
Oh, yeah.
Is there a possibility of, I mean, like doing, or does it even make sense to even have like, almost like a freestone kind of base to it, maybe an entrance where it adds that level changes, it kind of,
Yes. Yeah,
less turbidity in the water and then maybe promotes fish.
there absolutely is. Absolutely. is.
So then we got a plan. Let's do it.
It is
Oh,
5:05.
Claire, Art
So,
Claire.
sorry,
Can you check to see if there are any comments or questions?
I have been there. I read them out. There have not been any more since Bob Henderson's.
All right. So good. Well, the most important thing that came out of this meeting for me was understanding that downtown is something very specific to all of you. So at a minimum, when I refer to downtown, I'll make sure I'm talking about the right areas. And then as we think about the relationship of the downtown to these neighborhoods that are downtown adjacent, I guess we call them. Do y'all have a name for the neighborhoods that are
between the rivers.
between the rivers?
South Rome, North Rome,
But downtown's between the rivers too, right?
between the rivers, historic district, yes, but the neighborhood is between the rivers, like they're called the Between the Rivers, they're like Between the Rivers Homeowner Association.
I'm not sure what they call downtown, it's kind of bougie, but whatever.
Okay.
Yeah. Trust me, they
One more question.
differentiate.
So I don't have the GIS in front of me to see this, and it's easy to see on that, but can you tell me where the highest density of housing is? I mean, whether it's single family, multifamily, is it?
I can tell you this is the lowest. Right now, the residential rate over here of actual residences, not including people who unfortunately live under a bridge, but people who actually have a residence over here
Are you talking on this side of the bridge?
on this side of the bridge, right here where we're sitting, it's worse than like what we call Big Texas Valley Road, which is way out in the county. I mean, it's appallingly low considering you're looking at the forum.
So you're looking for density like per square acre.
Yeah, just kind of
Here,
curious where your
200
highest concentration of housing is. Whether it's
200
single or
block?
multi.
Block, you have the West Lost, you also have.
if you're looking for, the 200 block would be the most. There's probably 200, not that many, maybe
Well, you
100.
got the Greystone too.
Oh, shoot, yeah, so that would definitely be this one little corner. And then if you're looking for single family between the rivers, And then South Broad, which is down there, the historic section, look at the grid pattern down past the big cemetery. And those are all 100 by 100 deep, 50 wide, or maybe even 30 wide by 100 deep lots, most of them, if that. A lot of them are 0 lot lines too, at least the single family homes are, or close to it.
That doesn't include, we've got some strong neighborhoods, you know, College Heights and Oldie Strong.
They're just not as dense. They're on a little bit bigger parcels, but these will be the most dense.
All right. Thank you. This is great. What do we have next? What's our next meeting?
Our next meeting is Monday at 10 a.m. for streets and connectivity.
Okay.
Bring your engineering, public
engineer-
works and DOT
Yes,
friends.
engineering mandatory.
I invited them. I did.